Hi, Sudeep. Hi, Shraddha. Welcome to the fireside chat on reskilling and upskilling. Why this is, going to take up the center stage, especially in this, post-COVID era that we are going to live in. So to start off this conversation, and we know that you bring in a lot of experience around human resource, people management. So my first question is, we were looking at the keynote presented by Vijay initially, and he was talking about the demand for digital skills. So the first question is around that. We talk about upskilling, we talk about reskilling of employees. Where are these? What are those competencies that are going to be very critical for an organization of the future, especially if you can bring in some of the context from SAP and Walmart, respectively. What are those digital and the non-digital skills as well that you see, Shraddha? So over to you, Shraddha, and then we'll come to you, Steve.
Okay, so a very warm welcome. Thank you for having me here. Pleasure being here. So a quick overview from a skill set perspective. I think the skills are transforming faster than we ever anticipated, right? So what was relevant 3 years ago is a question mark today, has become a baseline skill. If you look at a comparison between 2013 to 2020, I think we've taken a whole lot of out of the chart. I'll give you an example. Human augmentation has been in conversation for 4 5 years, but the way it is being applied today is significantly different. So I don't want to spend time just talking about AI, ML, the
Hmm.
data science as a profile, because I think there's a lot of talk there. Maybe
Right.
I focus a little bit on the behavioral skills that we see as possibility to taking us to the next level, right? I'll call out three to me that seem very important. The first one is learning agility in the frame of a growth mindset. I think there's a lot of conversation again that's out there, but what we are forgetting is no matter what you learn, it will be irrelevant in a very short span of time. So the only thing that you truly can learn is the ability to learn itself. And that is on both ability, but most importantly, intention. So where we see people failing today is the intention part of the story. And how do you build that into a culture? So it's not a 1 hour block that you have on every Wednesday or a Friday for learning. How do you do it every day? How do you look at for learning in every experience that you're having, right? The second one is transdisciplinarity. I think that as a concept is going to take us to a completely different level. Uh, in the older T model that we have always spoken about, there will be a one area of expertise. But now the baseline is that you know a lot more disciplines and you can actually cruise through them to make better sense. So today, a customer does not want a solution to their problem. They want an holistic overview and not just a band-aid for today, but probably a path forward for their business. So the concept of moving from career ladders to career lattices is something that's going to come alive a lot more. And the third one that I think I want to call out from a behavioral element is is social intelligence. I think machines will do a lot of stuff for us, and I'm excited about that. To be honest, there's a lot of manual stuff that we can get away from our lives. We're living with Alexas, we're living with Amazon, which is making our life easier, which I'm very happy about as an end consumer. What is it that the machines are missing? The machines are missing the ability to connect the dots in a non-linear fashion or a non-automated fashion. They need to understand, and humans represent that feelings. Humans represent empathy. They understand the underlying causes. What machines will remove from our life is the operational task. So if you have
Hmm.
to pull ourselves up, where can you add value? What can you bring in terms of social intelligence for societal value? I think those are the three dimensions I would say people need to start thinking about.
Thank you, Shraddha, for bringing in those aspects. Sudeep, can you add your inputs as well? Shraddha talked about those behavioral aspects. Over to you, Sudeep.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here. And I think the topic is certainly super relevant right now. We've all been talking about, as Shraddha said, about the constant change in the world.
Hmm.
And I think the one thing that is a certainty, though, for all organizations and people, is that if you invest in ourselves and if you invest in our people, that's sure to pay off. So I think, first of all, I think it's good to see overall the theme of learning resonate across organizations and people really believing that this is the right way to go. I think Shraddha covered the main aspects of a lot of the behavioral skills that we are looking to build and reinforce for the future. I know you spoke earlier about tech skills as well and digital skills as well. I mean, some of this remains a little futuristic, but some of it is definitely a reality right now, right? For example, if you just think about full stack development, that is definitely, I mean, I think recently there was a HackerRank developer report as well, which talked about this being the top skill for the future. And also as a role, that's a role that sort of demands a continuous learning mindset because you have to constantly upskill yourself and learn a new language. Similarly, if you think about the way the world has changed right now, cloud and infrastructure, so all your experience and skills related to that, these are the people who are the hottest in the market right now, really. Or even cybersecurity, because as organizations and people work more and more virtually, and our associates and employees access data through multiple platforms and networks. Data accuracy, data monitoring, security is going to be at a premium. Data itself has been a hot skill for a while, and I think will continue to be. The difference that I see there is going back to what Shraddha mentioned, right? It's not just about data and being a great data engineer or an analyst or a scientist and having great technical skills there, but the ability to empathize, the ability to really build a deeper amount of business acumen and alignment. I think that's going to differentiate the best from the rest, so to speak, as the cliche goes. And then finally, I think this digital marketing. I mean, irrespective of discipline, whether you're a marketing professional or a tech leader or an HR person, I think the ability to be able to communicate with people, with employees, with consumers using digital mediums is possibly, I think, going to be a very, very critical skill, not just now, but for the future. So I think that's how I would round it off in terms of the skills that everyone is, I think, going to be investing in.
Got it. Thank you, Sudeep and Shraddha, for bringing in those aspects, especially around the behavioral skills, as well as Sudeep, you talked about cybersecurity. We are having a lot of these conversations with the customers where cybersecurity has all of a sudden gained a lot of importance. Agile is becoming more important across all the roles, not just tech roles, and obviously the components that you talked about. Now, coming to the next step, we have defined these technologies, these competencies that we need. What are the kind of newer I would say strategies and experiments that you are undertaking at your organizations? What are the best practices that you're seeing in an organization when you can transform your organization towards these competencies? So I would like to especially point that we talk about reskilling, and a lot of organizations are bringing in content providers, but we see a lot of the lower signups in those content providers. So what are those newer best practices that you are following and that you have seen in the industry? If you can shed some light on your thoughts and your thoughts on those aspects as well.
Like me to go first?
Yeah, Shraddha, thank you.
All right, okay. I think, like you said it, I think we used to believe we knew the content, and both Sudeep and I represent product organization, very proud product organization that contents with us. I think that's taken a toll, and that I think we've learned that there are content providers out there. The journey has to move from content creation to curation, and that's the difference. And I think that is the beauty of making sure what you're creating is actually landing well. So today you have enough and more companies that are providing you content, very, very diverse, and you can make a number of tie-ups. But how do you get your end consumer, your employee, to be self-motivated to go and log in there and actually complete a course, and not just complete a course, hopefully pick that skill and apply it at work, right? Which is even more tougher. So I think there are three or four examples that I will share from what we're doing at SAP. One is the whole co-creation part, right? Typically from an L&D professionals, which we used to take pride in doing that, now we do it with business. Our learning departments actually reside in business. They reside in reporting into P&L leaders. And that's how important learning is. And like you said, it's not just important for the employee, it's important for the organization to be relevant, exactly the way Sudeep called it out. If we're not going to train you for the future, we're not going to be in the future, or we're not going to be ready for the future. So customized learning journeys. And when I say customized, I'm not just talking about, so there's a bit of customization you can do on personas, right? Early talents, professional hires, first-time people managers, experienced leaders. I'm saying go one level lower. Go into a level which says, I know what are the training programs I have done in the last 3 months. What does that show? What is my aspirational career goal that somewhere in the system I hopefully have recorded? And putting the intelligence together to say, this is a program that may be interesting for you. or this is a program that your peer is doing and is recommending for you. So you're no more dependent on just your line manager or your immediate manager or somebody to tell you what to do. The system should have the intelligence to be able to do that. So, and we have a phenomenal system. We have SuccessFactors, our own product, as a platform out there, as a face. So we leverage a lot of that. The second one is an experiment called Techno School. It's no more an experiment. It's actually the second year running. It's
Mhm.
something that's as a very, very high intensive effort run by our experts for our employees. So it's not even does not even have HR people in there. It's a couple of courses, for example, cloud native development, machine learning. We're starting with artificial intelligence. It's truly really run by the experts of these topics,
Mm.
and it has both classroom as well as a hands-on element. So there's something that we have built, but it's so rigorous that people look forward for it, right?
Got it.
In a world of excess, you look for the things that make meaning to you. And
Right.
that meaning is something that you need to prioritize. And that leads me to the third example. We spent a lot of time at SAP trying to design experiences. Now, in most companies, experiences are designed for the top 10% because
Mm.
that's how you can manage, right? Experiences are more expensive, are more exhaustive for us to manage. Uh, the, the trick would be to go and design experiences for the 100%. And the
Got it.
way we say it is we believe every employee at SAP is a talent. So in that sense, we say there's something you bring to the table. Tell me what it is, and I will help you find ways for your career aspirations to align with what you can do at this organization. And from fellowships to shadowing to mentorship to coaching, I'm sure Sudeep will as well agree. These are a lot of things that are there, but we're also building smaller swaps, right?
Mhm.
Temporary job sharing. That's a
Mm.
concept we're still exploring. So there are a whole lot of experimentation
Got it.
in creating the learning culture. And to even further it, one last comment, we even started a startup studio. So we actually run an accelerator program, and our employees can take a break, actually
Right.
take a break, do a startup within SAP support system, and if successful, great. If not, come back. That's
Right.
the culture that we have built. So learning is not happening in front of a laptop; it's happening in life. So how can I create those experiences? But those were some thoughts to share.
Got it. Thank you, Shraddha. Sudeep, like Shraddha said, they're focusing a lot on building this culture where the company is offering these various experiments or outlooks for an employee to look forward to. Right? What are the ways in which you look at it at Walmart, and are what kind of ways you are leveraging technology to help you solve some of these problems?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've, I think, not just in the current scenario, but I think if you look at it over the last couple of years and you see the way the employee demographic has changed and evolved,
Hmm.
and how learning preferences have evolved over a period of time, right? The points of that Shraddha mentioned about learning being a lot more agile, being a lot more real time, being a lot more peer driven, I think is becoming a baseline now. So what does the organization need to do to really capture that and enable a culture of continuous learning? I think that's something that we're all struggling with. Especially in the last few months, I think the theme of the conference, right, on the Beyond Resilience resonates because you need to enable yourself and the organization to not just wade through, but also ride the wave, right? And
Right.
that's important. And I think there are four different ways of looking at it. The first is just focused on the content itself. As you think about the quote unquote the new normal, right, which is the most overused term, what do you need to build, right? And therefore, what are the skills that you need to build? Business acumen, obviously, how to lead virtually, how to have emotional resilience, how to have your new journals being a lot more productive and integrated extremely fast, right? All of these
Mm.
things are on top of your mind. But the how part of it, as the how you do it, is really what's opened up to a host of experimentation and new methods, right? I mean, Shraddha spoke about some of the great work that they are doing. Similarly, I think it's great to see how our tech leaders and teams, including the learning teams, are just using different ways of connecting with people. Because remember, this is a very, very different kind of consumer that we are talking about right now. Our employees are very different today than they were
Mm.
earlier. And
Mm.
therefore, the first thing that you've got to get rid of the mindset is skill development equals training, right? I mean,
Right.
once you get rid of that mindset and adopt the fact that there are different ways of encouraging the culture of learning, I think it's great. So we have something called weekly tech bites, for example, which is just 1 hour sessions every week on a set of different topics. Could be related to engineering or data or product or even culture. right? You have theater experiences that we've used in the past for in-person learning, but now we are delighted to see how fast both external partners as well as internal associates are adopting to theater and improv as a way of actually learning even virtually and so on, right? And that's where, to your point, technology plays a huge role. I mean, three different conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks, right? One with a new joiner who spoke to me about the onboarding tool and how they are using that to learn and come up to speed quickly. One with a people manager who spoke about how they are using a Slack channel to communicate with each other and talk about best practices. And one with a country head who I was saying that he's a great learner, and he said Flipboard actually helps him a lot recently. So it's amazing to see the range of mediums that our people today are using, and that's what technology has opened up. Beyond just being a platform where you have the traditional learning management system or an efficiency tool, it is now a tool that is being used to really demonstrate impact and create a much more personalized communication and experience for people. So I think that's where I see technology playing a huge role. And finally, all of this has to be enabled by the right team, as Shraddha said, right? I mean, our teams, our learning teams specifically, have to move from being process champions to becoming true business partners and curators. I think that's really going to be the crux, because you can have all the strategy and all the technology, but if your teams are not really up to the mark in being upskilled, pun intended, then all of this is not going to work. So I think that combination is really what's working for us, and I think it's going to work for any great organization.
Right, absolutely. That's a great point, Sudeep. And sticking to that, I think there is one question from the audience as well, and I was going to ask this to both of you. But staying with you, Sudeep, does it change when you talk about, how do you plan for these reskilling strategies compared to a large organization such as yourself? How does this change for a small organization, which is, working at a scale of hundreds of 500 employees? So do you see what kind of ways you are seeing in these kind of companies in order to reduce this skill gap?
I think the key really lies in listening and conversation, to be honest. And the way an organization that is 100,000 strong will do it very differently from the way a 10K organization will do it, versus very differently from, say, an organization that is 5 or 1,000 people. But the key is really listening and conversation. And that's why I have emphasized, I think I've used the word business acumen 3 times in the last 15 minutes. I think the ability to listen to the business and figure out what's really happening there, right? And there's one of my ex-bosses used to say, learn the business of your business, right? So if you really get that right, I think the mechanism through which you do it, whether you do it through focus group and one-on-one, whether you have like a really elaborate survey to kind of capture the need, is actually immaterial. The key really is listening and conversations. I think that really helps you align and, like you said, create a reskilling strategy that is truly in line with what your business needs.
Got it. And before we, there's so many more questions, but before we go out, Shraddha, coming back to you, there's a question, one more question from the audience is that, we talked about the technical skills, how you can work on that. Many of the companies are focusing on that. We also talked about the behavioral and soft skills like agile and other things. What are some of the things that you are doing in order to bridge the leadership gap, right? There's a leadership gap question that has come out from the audience. So what are the newer strategies or various experiments you are exploring or you have seen work when you're talking about the leadership skills in your workforce?
Okay. I think I couldn't agree more that you will not succeed as an organization if your first, you're as an employee, my experience with my first line manager isn't great. Right? That's why my first line manager. So typically what happens, everybody is sold out, as Sudeep says, on the workforce planning. Everybody has an idea of what we need to do from a future, so from a top leadership point of view. But as you percolate it down the organization, is it understood exactly the same? And is their passion for that drive still the same? In most cases, that is a challenge, right? It doesn't matter the size of the organization. That's why the leadership part of it is really, really important. a couple of things that we have done. And we really needed to imagine what did we want the leadership to look like given if our future is this way, right? If future of work is going to look like this, how should our managers behave? And there are certain fundamental principles you have to shift. And let's be very honest, behavior change is the most difficult of all. Technical stuff we all learn, we all get a great certificate about it. But if you have to change a behavior that has been inherent to your personality for 20 years, that's difficult to do. So we actually took time out specifically for our manager community. We have a very extensive manager community in India, over 700 of them, first line managers. And we have not just connects, we have platforms for exchange. We have platforms for peer networking, peer sharing, peer coaching. So we've created multiple of that, but on a basis of a content which we very clearly call out what expectations we have as of leaders, right? What are we holding our leaders accountable for? So we've called that out as an organization as three primary, expectations. For example, multiplier. We expect a leader to be a multiplier. We expect them to unlock potential of people. And that's something we want as a base requirement. So if that's the behavior I want out of you, I've even called out what specifically I want you to do. And I'll give you a small example of what worked for us. We did this experiment. So we know that it takes 21 days to form a habit, as they say. We tried it out. And for 21 days straight, we sent out a micro behavior or a micro action to the manager community. And it started with something as small as getting something for the team, like sharing a meal with the team, right? No, nothing fancy. You can go out now. These days, you can't go anywhere. But it's about how you bring the team together. Two, going back and saying, when you're giving feedback, look at somebody whom you've given a stronger negative feedback in the last 3 weeks, and have you actually made an effort to recognize what that person is doing towards that and appreciating that. So something as diverse where we wanted them to do that, right? I think Sudeep spoke about inclusion, very, very important. To be inclusive, one needs to be aware of one's own biases. We've spent so much time and effort educating our managers and enabling them to create a culture of innovation. So even before you talk about innovation, they need, inclusion. They need to understand where are their biases. Are they behaving differently without realizing? How do you create that sensitivity? So specifically for the manager community, I think that was a beautiful question. We've invested a whole lot in their enablement and their sensitization. And very importantly, you need to give them platforms that they're not always coming to HR. They can come, that's a group of 700. They can learn from each other. There's immense experience. But how do you let that vulnerability show in an organization that you feel comfortable that I can go and tell somebody else, I don't think I'm doing this right. And that is the culture piece that we have to drive as HR. So that's important.
Great points, Shraddha. Unfortunately, we have limited time, but Sudeep, any comments from your end on the development or bridging this, leadership gap? And then we will, close this discussion.
No, I think Shraddha covered it well. As they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And you can have the best thing in the world, but if you don't have a leadership team that is aligned and focused, I think that's missing. But I think the first step to really doing that is just self-awareness. And I hope that programs like this and sessions like this achieve, if nothing else, one objective, that it forces people to look inwards a little bit and think about where they are in their own development journey. Because I think if leaders recognize that, I think the opportunities available both within and outside organizations are absolutely immense in terms of being able to develop and learn and reskill. But I think the first step is really self-awareness. And I think that's where all of us need to spend a little bit of time.
Right. Great. I think the questions would not stop. There's so many things we can talk about, but it's great that we covered what kind of competencies you're seeing, what kind of micro experiments, Shraddha pointed out some, and Sudeep, you also gave in your inputs, what kind of micro experiments you are running inside these organizations. So that was great to hear. And I would like to thank you so much for your time today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for, sharing your thoughts. I will share some of our notes today with you and probably exchange more thoughts on that. Thank you so much.
Pleasure being here.
Sure, thank you.